Welcome to USA News Channel. Please like and subscribe for the first get new video update from us. Thank you.
US and North Korean diplomats have had a tit-for-tat exchange of allegations over which nation is responsible for rising tensions on the Korean peninsula. The war of words came Friday during UN Security Council ministerial talks on North Korea's nuclear and missile development.
They alone are responsible for these tensions. They alone must take responsibility for these tensions, and they alone can solve these tensions.
The U.S. is only the ringleader in nuclear proliferation.
North Korean envoy Cha Son-nam said the U.S. is the first to blame for nuclear proliferation because it has been investing massive funds into the modernization of nuclear weapons. Earlier this week, Tillerson proposed dialogue with Pyongyang without preconditions, but he has now revised the remark, saying the North must earn its way back to the negotiating table.
A sustained cessation of North Korea's threatening behavior must occur before talks can begin.
Friday's meeting was convened at the request of Japan, which is this month's chair of the Security Council. Japanese Foreign Minister Taro Kono says all member states must exert robust pressure on North Korea to curb its nuclear and missile programs and drastically reduce its foreign currency earnings.
We strongly urge all member states to fully implement the sanctions and close any possible loopholes.
Kono urged all UN member nations to send a clear message that the international community will never accept North Korea's possession of nuclear arms.
The U.S. is set to further ramp up the pressure on North Korea at the United Nations, where the North is also set to be making a rare appearance. The State Department says Secretary of State Rex Tillerson will seek to rally members of the UN Security Council on Friday to turn the screw on Pyongyang. Tillerson is slated to take part in a Security Council ministerial briefing regarding North Korea's nuclear weapons program. State Department spokesperson Heather Nauert says Tillerson will reaffirm the Trump administration's push for maximum pressure on Pyongyang so that it gives up its weapons programs. And during the discussions, he is also expected to confront North Korea's envoy. North Korea said it will send its UN ambassador to the event through an email from Cho Jong-chol, the spokesperson at the North Korean mission. During his rare appearance at the council meeting, Ambassador Cha Son-nam is expected to deliver a speech, possibly on how North Korea is a full-fledged nuclear power and how it will not give up its nuclear program. He met UN official Jeffrey Feltman on Thursday to follow up on the UN official's visit to Pyongyang last weekend. North Korea is not a member of the UN Security Council, but it made a request on Thursday to attend the event as a participating nation. The move is seen as a highly exceptional case, raising speculation that its envoy may be planning to make strong and determined remarks on the meeting's agenda. Ahead of the event, North Korea's state-run Korean Central News Agency lashed out at the U.S. for convening the meeting. The report said the meeting is none other than a desperate measure plotted by the U.S. being terrified by the North State nuclear force. In a separate broadcast, the North slammed the U.S. over the possible use of a naval blockade, warning such a move could drive the situation on the Korean peninsula to the brink of war.
North Korean regime's continuing unlawful missile launches and testing activities signal its contempt for the United States, its neighbors in Asia, and all members of the United Nations. In face of such a threat, inaction is unacceptable for any nation. But our hope remains that diplomacy will produce a resolution. As I said earlier this week, a sustained cessation of North Korea's threatening behavior must occur before talks can begin. North Korea must earn its way back to the table. The pressure campaign must and will continue until denuclearization is achieved. We will, in the meantime, keep our channels of communication open.
Japanese Foreign Minister Taro Kono will chair the talks, which are scheduled to kick off in a few hours. Japan is eager to hold in-depth talks aimed at turning up the heat on Pyongyang. U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson will be among those at the gathering. The U.S. is urging the international community to apply more pressure. President Donald Trump has asked Chinese leader Xi Jinping to cut off deliveries of crude oil. Earlier this week, though, Tillerson struck a more conciliatory note.
We're ready to have the first meeting without precondition. Let's just meet, and we can talk about the weather if you want.
UN sources say North Korea's ambassador to the UN, Cha Song-nam, is expected to put in a rare appearance at the Council. Cha has suggested that the talks and the U.S. are possible if Washington drops its hostile stance.
Mr. Secretary, you previously said that a precondition to talks with North Korea is the regime agreeing to give up its nuclear and ballistic missile capabilities. On Tuesday, you said that wasn't realistic. And today, you didn't mention the issue at all, despite what was in your prepared remarks. Does it remain a precondition for the United States? And are you and President Trump on the same page on whether and when to engage in talks?
The president's policy on North Korea is quite clear, and there's no daylight at all between the president's policy and the pursuit of that policy. And the president, I think, has been very clear that we are going to lead this pressure campaign. We're going to unite the international community, and we're going to keep the pressure as much as we can and increase it where possible. Most recently, the president called President Xi personally and asked him for China to cut the oil supplies off to North Korea to increase this pressure. That is intended to lead to diplomatic talks. In the meantime, the president's been very clear. Militarily, we are going to be prepared should something go wrong, and our military is prepared. With respect to the talks, we are not going to accept preconditions. You heard others have called for freeze for freeze. We do not accept a freeze for freeze as a precondition to talks. We do not accept any relaxing of the sanctions regime as a precondition of talks. We do not accept the resumption of humanitarian assistance as a precondition of talks. So we are not going to accept preconditions for these talks. But as I indicated in my remarks, our communication channels remain open. North Korea knows they're open. They know where the door is. They know where to walk through that door when they want to talk. Thank you.
The U.S. is the one who must be held accountable. There are several nuclear power states over the world now, but there is no country like the U.S. who is continuing to openly threat and blackmail other countries with its nuclear weapons.
Well, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson responded to this statement, this provocation, reiterating that their nuclear program violates international law. Tillerson said all the options are on the table, including military action, but the priority is to pressure and to continue to sanction North Korea to force them to the diplomatic table.
The international community condemns North Korea's pursuit of a nuclear arsenal, and we will never accept a nuclear North Korea. The DPRK's unlawful acts cannot be ignored, nor can they be explained away. They alone are responsible for these tensions. They alone must take responsibility for these tensions, and they alone can solve these tensions.
The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, as well as other members of the UN Security Council, have made it clear today that what the UN wants to do is actually act as an intermediary, making sure that there is no miscalculation or miscommunication that could escalate this into a devastating war. That is what the UN is trying to do. And in fact, just last week, the UN's top political affairs head, the Undersecretary Jeffrey Feltman, went to North Korea for a meeting, a first-of-its-kind meeting between the UN and senior officials of North Korea in about 8 years. And what they talked about there was about a 15-hour back and forth. And the North Koreans said ultimately that it was important to prevent war, but they were uncommitted when it came to whether or not they would engage in talks. So the UN trying all they can to exhaust all options. But one thing that is clear is that this Security Council will not accept a nuclear North Korea. And North Korea, as of now, doesn't seem like they will accept being denuclearized themselves.
North Korea may have accidentally shown a photo of its first atomic bomb. The photo, which appears on the wall in the background on a state TV broadcast, shows former leader Kim Jong-il inspecting a device. Now, if it's real, it means the country could have had the weapon as far back as 2006. And if that doesn't scare you, these comments from former basketball star Dennis Rodman just might. He sat down with Stephen Colbert, speaking candidly about his bizarre friendship with Kim Jong-un.
I don't see how people can sit there and say, this person's a madman. He probably is. But I didn't see that.
Rodman claims during one of his 5 visits, the dictator said he doesn't want war.